Welcome to the first podcast I've ever done. My name is Benjamin Mortuo. So why am I making a podcast? And more importantly, why am I doing something as crazy as trying to start a radical centrist movement to reestablish the foundational importance of the Constitution of the United States? Well, simply put, I see the rise of totalitarianism in our beautiful country, and I'm not willing to watch the greatest experiment of self-governance ever attempted to collapse while I stand on the sidelines and watch. I try to be a student of history. I try to learn from others' mistakes in order to avoid making my own. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? So back several years ago, there was a period of very contentious political turmoil. If I remember correctly, it was the Clinton impeachment. I was unsettled by the harsh rhetoric thrown about across the political aisle, but I remember very distinctly taking comfort in the fact that I was confident that everyone involved fundamentally agreed with our core principles. Democrats and Republicans and liberals and conservatives, that they all valued freedom of speech. They all valued due process. They all understood the importance of our system of government and the rule of law. It really honestly comforted me. It doesn't take much to look around our nation today, though, and see that those ideals are a little worse for wear. Criminal violence and rioting fill our streets. Politicians flaunt due process and the rule of law publicly. A culture of censorship and enforced ideological conformity increasingly permeates every domain of our society. I've increasingly been looking into history for examples of this kind of thing. Has this ever happened before? How did it end? Can we fix it? These are important questions. It doesn't take a great imagination to think that this might end badly. While there are more examples that I could give, I'll give two very briefly. The first is China in the 1960s. After the economic collapse brought on by the Great Leap Forward, China had liberalized its economic policies in order to try to recover. In so doing, Mao, the dictator of China, was largely sidelined within the Communist Party leadership. To regain power, Mao organized a cultural reformation that tore the Chinese society apart. If you want to learn more about it, look up the Cultural Revolution. In this revolution, Mao weaponized the youth of the country and demonized any institution that hinted at the old Chinese culture or capitalism. Anyone who did not offer full-throated support to the cause was rounded up, forced to confess to real and imaginary crimes, and often killed. While our situation is not nearly as severe as that, it does bear many of the same ideas. The incessant attack on all organizations to bow to the mob, to fire people the mob views as objectionable, to change policies to please the mob, even if they're dumb policies, to insist that statements made in support of the mob, to put supportive signs or stickers in the storefronts in the hope that you won't have to buy a new window that week. These are the same attitudes. These are the same demands. The only difference is we do not have a government encouraging this kind of madness to the point of overlooking murder. The other example I'll give is 1920s Germany. There was a similar thing going on then. We kind of forget about it because of the whole Nazi thing, but communism was taking hold of the country. The alliance of Red Front fighters was growing, with a membership of up to 130,000 at its peak. Clashes between them and the police were common. There was widespread fear that the communists were going to take over. Enter the Nazi Party and the brown shirts. They promised strong opposition to the communists. They showed a strong face against the violence all over the country. They presented themselves as the saviors of the German people. You likely know the rest of the story. All right, you say, the Nazis were bad news. I know that already. I don't see the Nazi Party doing a lot here in the U.S. I don't see a lot of overt communists either. And fair enough. The point here is that we're seeing a strong far-left push in our culture. Left unchecked, it will eventually translate into far-left control of the government. If that is permitted, I'm concerned we will end up with something akin to the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Not saying it is going to happen in any specific timeline, but that is the trend we're seeing. Now, as things go along that far left road, and more people are going to get hurt, lose their jobs, have their businesses burned down, and the like, more and more people are going to get angry. It's not beyond reason that a far-right group could gain prominence for fighting back and genuinely helping defend people against the far leftists. If the government, federal and local, is seen as weak in the face of the leftist advances, the far-right retaliation could reasonably see a major rise to political power. In either case, we would end up with a totalitarian state that, if history holds any lessons, would kill millions of people, based on arbitrary values set by a small set of people in power. Now that you're properly depressed, let's talk about solutions. What can we do, sitting on the front side of this impending doom, to avoid it? Our goal at Civil Rights Society is what we're trying to achieve is to thread the needle between the two totalitarian cliffs. By fighting back against the current trend toward a culture of totalitarianism, we can avoid the communistic threat. And by working to protect Americans of all dispositions from violence and economic censorship, we can steal the energy a Nazi-ish threat would need to form. Alright, you say, but what does that mean? What are you asking me to do? I'm so glad you asked. The single most important thing we can do as Americans to solve this is to talk. To have all the hard conversations with our friends, family, and coworkers. Not just about politics, race, and economics, but about your relationships. The problem we actually have, I believe, is a breakdown of relationships. We are allowing the things that anger us and divide us and frustrate us to break our relationships. There are probably billions of broken relationships across the country that are restricting people from solving problems because they're not able to talk through things. So the first thing I ask you to do is an inventory of the people in your life. Evaluate where you are with them. Reach out to them and mend frayed connections. Work to reconcile things where there is hurt. Apologize for your part, even if it's just 5% of the problem. Make the overture. If we did that, imagine how much less anger and hurt there would be in our country. Imagine how much happier a place it would be. The second thing I recommend is to study history a little. We live in a remarkable country, the likes of which has never existed before. It certainly is far from perfect, but like our relationships with our friends and family, we can recover a little of our relationship with our country. It has its warts and its flaws, like any person does, but it also has its beauty. There are tons of resources all over the internet if you just look. If you want a place to start, look at our website, civilrightssociety.org, and we have a page for educational resources. Third, when appropriate, record those hard conversations and post them on social media. We need to see people having real, good-natured, and honest conversations on topics that matter. I'm not advocating for any political position here. I want to see video after video of people who disagree, having genuine conversations with the intent, not of debating, but of genuinely understanding where the other person is coming from. A conversation where, even if you still disagree, at the end of it, you can shake hands afterwards and still be friends. Fourth, help us. If you look through our website, you can see we're trying to do a big thing. We can only do it with your help. You can follow and promote us on social media. Help us get our message out there. You can donate to us. We don't have any high rollers banking this thing. We're just a typical group of people with typical small bank accounts trying to do this. So any money you can throw our way is greatly appreciated. If you really want to help us, you can volunteer. We're looking for people to help us push this movement forward, and ultimately, we cannot succeed if the American people don't value what we're trying to do. Lastly, you can pray for us and our nation. The Civil Rights Society is not a religious organization. You can help us no matter your religious affiliation. However, we do recognize that our form of government is unfit to govern an immoral people. Freedom comes with responsibilities. And if we as a people reject those responsibilities, we're rejecting the freedom along with it. Feel free to contact us on our social media or through the website, which again is civilrightssociety.org, and we'd love to talk more. This has been Benjamin Mortuo. Thanks for listening.